noise audit. I just love the concept of noise audit. And that's something anybody can use.
Well, the concept of a noise audit, we wrote a book called Noise, a Flaw in Human Judgment. And we wrote that book because people are focused on bias as the main source of error. And indeed, the word bias and the word error have become almost synonymous in recent decades. But it turns out that noise, just plain variability, randomness in judgment, is a very important source of errors for organizations. And people are largely unaware of it. So I'll tell you a story from the beginning of our work, how our work on noise began. I was consulting with an insurance company and working, among others, say, with underwriters. And the idea I had was, let's present the same problem to underwriters, and it's a problem that they deal like the ones that they deal with on their job every day, a realistic problem with a complicated risk, and let them put a dollar value on it, which is their job every day. And I asked executives, so clearly you don't expect two underwriters to come to exactly the same dollar number. I mean, we know this is a judgment problem, and on matters of judgment, we know that reasonable people can disagree a little, not too much. The question is, how much disagreement should we expect? So I asked the executives, if you take two underwriters at random and you look at their dollar value, and you take the average and the difference, by what percentage do you expect them to differ? What looks like a reasonable number? Now, everyone in the audience has a number in their head, and I know what that number is for the majority of people who listen. It's 10%. 10% looks like a reasonable difference. It's tolerable. You can live with that. But in fact, when we actually measured how much discrepancy there was between two underwriters, two random underwriters, the difference was 50%, 5 times more than people expected. And that came as a complete surprise to the organization. And that's where we wrote the book, basically, because wherever there is judgment, there is noise. Everybody knows that. But there is much more noise than you think. That's what we learned from that experiment. And a noise audit is simply an experiment like the one I described, where you have many people in the organization whom you expect, they all speak for the organization. They all make decisions on behalf of the organization. You would expect the organization speaks through them. You know, it makes proposal, it accepts offers. So you would expect the organization to speak in one voice, but actually it doesn't. There is a lottery depending on who you interact with, which underwriter. There is a lottery depending on which judge. If you're a defendant, which judge is going to hear your case. That's noise, and a noise audit is a way to measure noise. And that's what we did in that insurance company.
Fascinating stuff, Daniel. I mean, I'm going to take you on a detour here for a second, because there's one question which is super close to me, and I'm curious to hear what your response is. I would claim that you and I are influenced by a lot of signals every day, and a lot of the decisions we make, we may not make consciously, we make it subconsciously. And we sort of kind of don't know how impacted we are by the surroundings. And not only to tell you this whole issue with equality and race issues and stuff like that, also somehow are categorizing people in our mind. I'm going to play a little video with you. It's a bit controversial, but I want to play it for you first to hear if there's something to what this research study is claiming, or if you feel, you know what, this is completely off track. So let's just play this video for a second, and then just let's talk about what your view is about it.
Images and even words, slipping thoughts and feelings into our subconscious is one thing. But what is more worrying is how those thoughts and feelings can then change our behavior. Today, one of John Barger's PhD students is running an experiment to investigate the priming effects of temperature.
What we do in our experiment, we very briefly expose people to a warm or cold substance. And what we expect to happen is that that simple experience with a warm substance or a cold substance will prime people to sort of activate these feelings of warmth and comfort and the things that we've learned about since we were very young. And when we have those things in mind, those things we know will color people's judgments and decisions and their behaviors as well.
Volunteers for the experiment are asked to hold a warm cup of coffee as they are met by Lawrence. They have been primed with heat. The purpose of the experiment is to record participants' judgments about Lawrence's colleague, Randy.
How was your break?
It was awesome.
It was good until I got stranded in Florida because of the snowstorm in New York on Friday, so I got stranded.
The theory is that the hot drink will somehow elicit positive feelings towards Randy, even several minutes after experiencing the warmth of the cup. And here's the killer question. Would you give Randy a permanent job?
Based on your brief interaction with Randy, or would you hire him as project manager?
He seemed like a generally friendly guy.
So yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, why not?
Sure. Yes. Yes.
Saying warm and friendly things about a stranger might just be the normal polite response. Time to cool things down. Except for the temperature of the drink. Identical conditions. The same conversation with Randy.
How was your break? You glad to be back?
Not really.
And 6 minutes later, the same questions from Lawrence.
Based on your brief interaction with him, would you recommend him or would you hire Randy as project manager?
As a leader? I'm not sure.
Based on the brief interaction? No.
Maybe not from the impression that I got.
The experiment shows, remarkably, that a brief encounter with a beverage could see you either hired or fired. It's a powerful effect, and one that might have worrying applications.